Whether you're turning arrows into a medieval shotgun, charging in like a rogue who got lost in a freezer, or using the cheapest hunk of metal to slap the hardest boss, we've got your back. These are 3 of the best builds in No Rest for the Wicked. Let's start with the best build I've done so far. It has high armor with maximum poise, but at the same time it has great mobility. It has superb lifesteal to add even more survivability. It has insane damage with good stagger attacks using the ice element. And most importantly, it has a huge amount of stamina and stamina regeneration to keep you attacking and dodging almost infinitely. This is my most efficient build at clearing a Crucible dungeon. And all of this without using any damage runes, only basic attacks. I will show the full gear after I beat the Crucible boss. Let's start with the main weapon, the Ash-Soothed Daggers. These are the best dual daggers in the entire game, or at least the best ones I personally found so far. Why are they so good? Is because they have a very fast attack animation. They hit 2-3 times in the span of a second. They basically do triple the amount of damage just from one attack. Now, before I move on to the stats, I want to explain how the element damage works in this game. The element damage works only with basic attacks, not with the runes. Most runes will have an element attack. But even if you enchant and get the same element as a stat damage, it will not increase the rune damage, only the basic attacks. Now in this build, we are not using any damage runes, but we are using buff runes. On the main weapon, I added the Cold Enchantment, as this will buff my cold damage even more. The Cold Enchantment rune you can find at Eleanor. I then added a gem to give me even more cold damage. The important stats I rolled on the weapon are the cold damage, the health on damage dealt, and the stamina refill chance on damage dealt. You don't need all of this to make the build work, just the element damage. The health on damage dealt, you can use a ring that can increase the lifesteal. But having this stat on the weapon will just make the lifesteal more efficient. For the other weapon, you can use anything, as the main purpose of this second weapon is just to have a buff rune on it. The Damage Surge rune. The combination of Damage Surge and Cold Enchantment will significantly boost your damage. For the equipment, I've tried to focus on high armor, poise, and most important, stamina. Stamina being the most important focus on this build. The helm, I have stamina increase and poise. I also added a stamina cost decrease gem. For the body armor, again stamina increase and poise. I also added another stamina increase gem. For the gloves, stamina increase. And for the pants, again stamina increase and poise. I also added a stamina regeneration gem. For the rings, I'm using 2 of the most powerful rings in the game. The fierce rings that give me both armor increase and damage increase. The last ring is the crow ring that gives me 2 health on damage dealt. Basically lifesteal, but it does come with a penalty to my overall health. For the stats, I'm using 31 in health, 32 in dexterity and intelligence to increase my weapon damage a bit more. 16 in focus to be able to use both buff runes one after the other, and then 26 in equip load to put me into the normal weight class and give me good mobility. And that's it, the Ice Rogue build. Insane damage, survivability, and stamina. Now to get the dual daggers, the Ash-Soothed Daggers, all you have to do is buy the recipe from Eleanor. And then you craft it at the anvil near the blacksmith. To find the recipe, you need to upgrade Eleanor's shop to tier 3. For the anvil, you need to upgrade the blacksmith to tier 2. To farm materials and rings, you can go to the Greenwich vendor, as he will sell lots of random materials and rings. If you upgrade his shop, he will sell more stuff, so you will have more chances to find what you need. If he doesn't have what you are looking for, you can create multiple realms, and when you go to him in every one of them, he will have a fresh shop. This is probably the most overpowered build I've done so far. It has insane damage and range, it has a lot of armor and health to tank any hits, and most importantly, it has infinite focus and health gain with just one single attack. This is the Ranger Spear Knight build. I will show the full gear after I beat the Crucible boss. As you can see, I'm doing a lot of mistakes and I should have already been dead, but his build is incredibly tanky. If you are still having difficulties beating the Crucible boss, this build should help you with that.
Down forever!
Okay, let's first start with the spear. Needle Spear. Firstly, the main slot weapon of this build is not as important as the bow. The spear is incredibly good and gives a bit of range considering it's a melee weapon, but I am just using it to buff my bow. You can use any one-handed weapon in your right hand together with the bow. Now the stats that I recommend you try to roll when you enchant it is the gain health and gain focus on damage dealt. The stats from the right hand weapon are used by the bow as well. So if you get focus gain on the spear, you will also use that focus gain on the bow. Now I could have used a gem that gives focus gain on the spear, but as you can see, one single bow shot fills more than half of my focus bar, so I just used a damage increase gem. Now another amazing thing about this spear is that it already comes with the rune Damage Surge. This rune is a buff that increases your damage even more, and I recommend you add this rune on any build you make. Now let's talk about the bread and butter of this build, the Yun Longbow. You can buy this bow from Whitaker the Woodcutter for around 3 silver, and it already comes with the Cone Shot rune. The Cone Shot, in my opinion, is the best bow skill in the entire game. It fires a barrage of arrows, and the further away you are from the target, the more arrows will hit the target. If you have focus and health gain from your overall gear, every one of those arrows will generate you focus and health. That is why, even with the last patch nerf, this build is so overpowering. For the gems, I added an increased overall damage gem, gain focus on damage dealt, gain stamina on damage dealt, and lastly, I added a gem to decrease the weight of the bow, as the overall build uses the heaviest armor in the game for the best survivability. Now for the helmet, body armor, gloves and pants, they are all bought from the blacksmith, and I keep enchanting them until I get either chance to get health on damage taken or poise, or both of them. On my body armor, I managed to get both of them. I also added a gem with health increase. The Reflect 3% damage taken doesn't work with the current patch. They nerf it so much to a point it does no damage at all, probably because people were using it to one hit kill the last boss in the previous patch. For the helmet, I managed to get a chance to get 14% health on damage taken. I also added an armor rune. For the gloves, I got more poise increased and again added armor rune. A really good stat I managed to get on the gloves is the 14% stamina refill chance on damage dealt. Sometimes when I'm running out of stamina, it can instantly replenish it all and keep me going for longer. Unfortunately, it's a chance stat, so it will not trigger all the time. And for the pants, I managed to get both poise and health on damage taken. Also added armor rune. For the rings, I am using 2 rune rings that gives more damage to the cone shot skill. And the last ring is the crow ring that gives me 2% health on damage dealt. Unfortunately, it has a health decreased penalty, but the amount of health gain it gives is higher. Now I do have 2 of these rings, and one of them gives a less health on damage dealt. But the biggest problem is that the penalty is even higher with 2 of them. I have 30 points in the health stat, and with 2 crow rings, my health goes all the way down as when I was level 1. Now, for the stats of this build, we have 30 points in health for more survivability. Then 42 points in dexterity. I added that much, because the spear needs 42, but the bow only needs 22 points. So if you use a different weapon in your right hand that doesn't require that much dexterity, then you can allocate some of these points to different stats. Then I added 31 in focus to give me more maximum focus. And lastly, since I'm using a very heavy armor, I added 21 points in equip load, and now my total weight class is at 99%. And that's it! The Ranger Spear Knight build. It has the best range in the game. It has high armor and health for survivability. And lastly, every cone shot gives insane focus and health gain. Technically, you should never need to use any focus potions or any health consumables with this build. This is a build focusing on the Blood Rusted Sword, and in my opinion is probably the best one-handed sword in the entire game. Now let me show you the build, starting with the weapon. Let's start with the Blood Rusted Sword. Why did I say at the start that this is the best one-handed sword? It's because it's easy to get from the blacksmith, it's cheap, and it already comes with a very powerful rune, the Spin. Unlike most runes that have their own damage, this rune will just use your own attack damage and spin 2 times in the air. This is important, as now you can use any element damage from your stats. Most runes, if you have elemental damage on your weapon, will not increase the rune damage, only if you have damage increase stat. But in the case of Blood Rusted Sword, the element damage of your weapon will be applied to your rune as well. In my case I went for heat damage, as I also managed to get focus and health gain on this weapon. I have an even better damage roll on this sword that gives me overall more damage, but I did not manage to get health gain on that. I like my lifesteal, so I used the one that had health gain. I also added another rune to give me even more heat damage. Also, the requirements for using this sword is only 10 strength, meaning any character can use this sword from the start of the game. For my offhand, I have a torch that gives me more focus and health on damage dealt. The damage increase on the torch is not going to contribute to the damage of the main hand. This is a useless stat on the torch. I then added a gem to give me even more focus on damage dealt. For the equipment, I've tried to focus on high armor, poise, and most important, stamina. Stamina being the most important focus on this build. The helm, I have stamina increase and poise. I also added a stamina cost decrease gem. For the body armor, again stamina increase and poise. I also added another stamina increase gem. For the gloves, stamina increase. And for the pants, again stamina increase and poise. I also added a stamina regeneration gem. For the rings, I'm using 2 of the most powerful rings in the game. The fierce rings that give me both armor increase and damage increase. The last ring is the crow ring that gives me 2 health on damage dealt. Basically lifesteal, but it does come with a penalty to my overall health. For the stats, I'm using 30 in health, 39 in strength, and since I just level up, I will add the remaining points in strength for more damage, then 26 in focus to give me the ability to spam my rune more, and finally 29 in equip load to put me in the normal weight category. And that's it, the Blood-Rusted Sword build. Keep in mind that the game is still in early access, so certain things might change with future patches. I hope this video helps you in your Wicked journey. If you liked this video, consider subscribing, and if you have any questions, leave them in the comments.